one of the worst things you can be online is boring. In fact, boring is worse than hated. If you want to actually make an impact with people, you cannot be boring. And in this episode, we're going to explore what boring looks like, because I would argue at least 90% of people on social media are boring. And I'm going to include myself, because I was boring for a long, long time. And it took me a long time to really try and shake this, because we screw ourselves up by doing things that kind of eliminate any level of personality. We literally do things that eliminate personality. And I see this all the time. And people are brilliant at creating straw man arguments to justify them being boring. Let me give you some examples. And these are examples I hear all the time. If I share too much of my personality, will people not think I'm unprofessional? Like personality and professionalism can't go together. This is just nonsense. You can be yourself. You can be who you are. You can express yourself in your personality without having to be unprofessional. And what do we even mean by unprofessional? Do we mean incompetent, or do we mean boring? Often what happens is this word professional becomes some kind of way to say whatever we want without defining. What does it mean? What does professional mean? Does it mean wear a suit? Does it mean say things that are robotic? Does it mean say jargon? What does it actually mean? Because when you start to dig into it, it's a highly subjective term. So I see people going, well, I'll moderate what I say. I'll tame it down. And what happens is you say nothing. How do you build a brand? How do you build trust? How do you build a connection with people? It's not the delivery of information. It's your slant. It's the way you deliver it. It's your backstory. It's people buying into the way you do things. And so one of the number one ways you can be boring is just to transmit information without any personality, and use this straw man argument of, I won't it be too unprofessional to do it this way or that way. At the end of the day, we're in this game to get attention and build people who like us. So we have to do it in a way that feels like us. And I've seen so many people who've worked in a corporate environment, and corporate is its own level of toxic, by the way. Corporate environments basically are some of the most political environments ever, because what they do is they eliminate people taking risks. Nobody wants to be caught out. Nobody wants to be thrown under the bus. So nobody does anything innovative, anything different. They just go with the flow, because nobody wants to be out on a limb. And that kind of culture, when you step out and decide I'm going to go for growth and go for gold on whatever platform, will not cut it. And it takes you a long time to get out of that mentality of, let's not rock the boat. Let's try and stay middle of the crowd. So this whole unprofessional thing, there's a sharing too much, but most people don't even know where that is. Yeah. Everybody's worried about where sharing too much is, but that line is so far away from the majority of people, they shouldn't even think about it. Somebody going, I actually hate corporate, worry about saying I hate corporate. I've seen this. Somebody says, I hate corporate. They're not in corporate, but they obsess about not calling out what they see as hating corporate. They won't say it because what if somebody wants to work with me and they love corporate? Another straw man argument, right? Hypothetical stuff we invent hypothetical scenarios we invent to give us a reason not to do something. It's everywhere. Have you ever done this, by the way? Created hypotheticals as a way to stop yourself from doing things. They're called straw man arguments, where you invent something just to make a point and make yourself argue against something that is impossible to argue. It's like the whole quality versus quantity argument. Well, I prefer to post quality content. Okay. Why can't you post quality and quantity? How do you get to quality? Through quantity. Anyway. So this whole unprofessional thing. Then here's another one. And I had this one the other day. And it's a perfectly reasonable point. But won't people get fed up of seeing all of my content? Won't people get fed up of seeing all of my content? No. One of the downsides of social media, one of the horrendous downsides is we are scrolling and consuming so much information on our phone that we consume more information than we can process. And so you'll know this. There's stuff you consume online that you can't even remember afterwards because we're sucking up too much information into our brains. And, people worry about, should I share too much? I would say that the majority of people share too little. The majority of people don't share enough stuff. But what happens is they obsess about this fear that somebody might see them and get annoyed by them. And so what happens is we allow a minuscule minority of people, like 0.1%, to dictate how we do things. 0.1% dictate how we do things. One person getting annoyed will rule our lives over the thousands we can potentially reach. Millions even. So I see this one rolling around a lot. Won't people get annoyed if I share too much? Well, your definition, in most cases, definition of sharing too much isn't big enough. I said to somebody, I was training somebody the other day, and I said, I post 2 times a day. And they asked me that question. Will people not get fed up? Maybe. But it seems to be working all right for me so far. Maybe some people get fed up. And am I going to try and appease and please everybody? Because that's a fool's game. So another straw man argument that we create is, won't I annoy people if I post too much? This person, by the way, was not posting at all. Yeah, not posting at all. I've had people say that same question to me, posting once a week, once a month, saying exactly the same thing. And then somebody asked me, so how much is too much? And I answered honestly and said, I don't know, but I do know that when you start to post 5 or more times on LinkedIn in a week, you start to see diminishing returns in terms of visibility and engagement. And they were like, 5 times a day? They were shocked. 5 times a day. 100% 5 times a day. It's crazy. So we have these straw man arguments about, posting too much personality. And often these arguments are brought to me by people doing very little. And what happens is we're worried about where the line that we flip over is. Where do we become annoying or where do we become unprofessional? But what often happens is we don't understand where that line is. So we think that line, that crossover line between too much and too little and professional and unprofessional is so close, but it's actually a million miles down the road. Some people think if I share my opinions on LinkedIn, I might end up like Andrew Tate. Yeah, your opinion on why a particular methodology on LinkedIn doesn't work, or your opinion on a particular industry regulation, and Andrew Tate, if you say that, you become Andrew Tate. Trust me, Andrew Tate has done a whole load of crazy things to get where he is today. Your little opinion about one thing is not going to turn you into somebody like him. But what it will do is you having opinions, you sharing what you actually think, you telling people what you think will endear people. It will bring people who like your style. It will bring people who like the way you think about the world. And we are in a time when the world is very tribal, good or bad, whatever, but we want to belong. We want to belong. We want to find our tribe. People who get us and people who like and share similar views and values. And you being open, sharing what you think on topics that matter both in your business and in your industry, and sharing what you really think. I don't mean abusing people or attacking people, but sharing what you really think, sharing your opinions on it will endear people to you. And I'll just give you, I love saying this because I think it's really illustrative of the way the world works. Most leaders of countries, Donald Trump included, they get elected by less than 50% of the population. They get elected usually by less than 30% of the population. So you look at this and you go, hang on, Donald Trump is the leader of the free world now, and he is there because less than 30% of Americans voted for him, when you count the whole population. Translate that to your world. Do you need to write and communicate and share things that everybody will agree with? Do you need to do that? You don't need to go out and deliberately try and annoy people and anger people and provoke people. But if there's something that matters to you and your opinions matter and you've got views on particular things, the likelihood is if you share them, people will find you who share your views, who see your point of view. They are the most valuable people on earth to you. But this whole saga of not sharing enough, not sharing any personality, not standing for any issues that you believe in, if you don't do that, you basically become boring. You basically become middle of the road, not very opinionated, not very interesting, not very exciting, not very insightful, because you're just transferring neutral information. Neutral. It's boring. You could be a web page. Yeah, you could be a web page. Lesson in content, lesson in your personal brand. Don't be a web page. Have some personality, have some beliefs, and stand on them. And the longer you don't do this, the more you will have a group of mildly interested people hanging around with you. There's nothing more depressing than mildly interested people hanging around you. Don't get me wrong, I love the whole concept of virality, but if you want to do really, really well, if you want to do really, really well on LinkedIn, you need to build a tribe. And that tribe needs to know who you are, needs to get a flavor of your personality, needs to know what you stand for, what you believe in, and you have to have some balls to share your opinion, what you believe, and really put yourself out there. You don't need the entirety of LinkedIn to love what you do. You don't even need the entirety of your industry to love what you do. You don't need even your all of your ideal clients to love what you do, because the vast majority of people might only need 20 clients. So in reality, what we're doing is, in our efforts to appeal, remember that one person whose one criticism stops you from doing all of this stuff. In our efforts to get 20 people to absolutely love what we do, we hold ourselves back for other people who don't matter. whole population. If I'm on LinkedIn, I need more clients than that, but I need about 500 clients a year through all of my businesses. 500 clients. If I need 500 clients in a year, there are 6,999,500 people that don't matter. It took me, this is hard work, that 6.99995 or whatever billion don't matter. I'm making the content for the 500. I'm making the content for the 500. And hopefully I'm going to share you a story I grew up with, right? So I grew up in a very Christian home. And some of the people I went to church with think I'm an absolute rebel now, but never mind. I'll forgive them. I grew up with a story of a shepherd. And he's got 100 sheep. And you probably know the story because if you went to school before the 90s, you'll have heard it. Shepherd, 100 sheep. One of those sheep strays off. And at the end of the day, the shepherd's putting all the sheep in the fold and he's got his 99 and he can't find that one. So he gates them all up, locks them all up for the night, and he goes looking for the one. Yeah. I remember that story vividly. Remember it from being a kid 30 or gazillion years ago. I remember that story, but it is a reminder that when you're on LinkedIn, you're doing it for the one. Who is your one? Because if you try and do it for the 99, they will not appreciate it. They will not work with you. They will not pay you money. They will not be your biggest fan. They will not be the ones who are there celebrating your success. It's the one. Now, that one might be bigger than one for you. It might be 500 for me. It might be 10 for you. But we're actually doing our LinkedIn. We're actually doing our social media. Not for everybody. It's for the one. Who's your one? Who's your one? And, it's a bit different if you're listening to me and you're in a corporate job. You've signed up, you've probably got a decent salary and you're paid to conform. But if you're not, if you're a business owner, you set the rules of the game. Decide who your one is, what I call a high-value audience. Decide who your high-value audience is and decide who you are. Who's your brand? Because you want people to buy into the real you. Business is so much more enjoyable, so much more fun when you can be yourself doing it, when you could be honest. I tell my clients, just be aware, if you email me, I'm horrendous at email. So it's better to email the team email box because I might miss your email. If they don't like that, that's tough on them. That's why we say it. That's why we put the Dean inbox there and say, message that one. So who's the one? And start digging deep on who you are, because your ideal clients will come for that person. They'll come for your ideas. That's what we're doing. So who's your one? Yeah, stop making all of these arguments, these fictitious arguments, these straw mans about hypothetical this person, hypothetical. It's all bollocks. You need to start thinking about who is the one and who am I? Because at the end of the day, life is too short to pretend to be somebody else or to not say things or not share things that you think is important for the sake of imaginary, made-up opinions that you've generated for the rest of the world. So this is my thoughts. You might not like it, but it's true. I know it because the more I become myself after years of trying to conform, after years of trying to blend in to be accepted, I realized it did nothing for me other than piss me off bluntly, because there's things I wanted to say and didn't say because of what ifs. So say what you think, know who your audience is, and stop trying to please everybody.